Welcome to another episode of Mindful City, Tuning into Life, a podcast to discover and celebrate the many ways that our city is using mindfulness in our practical daily lives. Welcome to another episode of Mindful City, Tuning into Life. And I'm very honored to have today as my guest, Eniko Ola, the founder of Sands Market, and that's downtown St. Pete's own zero waste store.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I found you on Instagram. It's interesting because I was having a conversation with someone the other day about social media, and there's a lot of don't go on social media going on. And I thought to myself, I've only received benefit from going on social media. Because everybody I've found in the industry, in the sense of in mindfulness, in Mindful City, the way that I look at it, I've found this way. Yeah. And so I haven't made it out to your store, and I thought, this is going to do it. Now I'll get to come and see the store. But I really wanted to meet you and to have an introduction into zero waste and make it more applicable, for me, the average person, to see it's not something that's not attainable. Yeah. And so I wanted to have you on the show. But if you would just share a little bit your story, how did this start and what you're doing?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me. I love connecting with like-minded people, so it's always good to build your tribe. Yeah. Zero waste. It sounds intimidating, but it really shouldn't be. I mean, zero waste isn't about producing no waste. We're humans. We all produce some sort of waste. It's more about changing your mindset. And so that's kind of how my journey started too. I used to work in corporate America, and I actually worked in the packaged goods industry. And I just saw a lot of waste going on in my work life. And then at home, I have 3 children. So being more conscious of what we're consuming and how we're consuming it, how it's affecting my body when I was pregnant or breastfeeding, or how it affected my children's bodies as they're growing and developing, was also a trigger for me in terms of wanting to do something more in the sustainability field.
I think working in packaged good is like the place to really see how much we use and not reuse.
Well, and not just what the consumer ends up taking home and then disposing of, but upstream in the manufacturing process, how much waste there is too. Exactly. So it's a lot, and it's hard to change these massive industries or companies or brands that have been around for decades. Even the people there do have good intentions, but it's tough. So I did what I could within the businesses I was working in, to a certain degree. Everyone's busy in their own jobs, but I just ultimately wanted to go off and do something more and discover it on my own, even if it was on a smaller scale. So it came out of that need. I wanted to do something that I was interested in and passionate about, and also I wanted to be able to provide for my family in a way that I knew they deserved, because I couldn't find the things that I wanted for them and for myself.
So when did you take that jump?
So it was a slow process. It felt like, it took a really long time, but it also feels like it was just yesterday. I left the corporate world maybe 2.5 years ago, and I quit my job. That's when I had my 3rd child, and I just took a year off to figure out what I wanted to do. So I got to spend a year at home with my son and figure out this new business model. And so about a year ago was when I officially launched the company. And so I've been doing it ever since. So yeah, it's kind of a whirlwind, but it's fun.
I can imagine. One of the things you said earlier was about when you had your children.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the places that I feel people may not feel that they can do zero waste as well as they would like. When you're talking about diapers and things like that. So what was your experience going through that?
Yeah, and it's very fresh. We're just now potty training my 2-year-old son, so he's the youngest. So we're almost officially out of all of the diaper forms for all 3 kids. It's tough. I mean, I think going back to the notion of zero waste, it's not about not producing any waste. It's about thinking about it differently and changing your habits and behaviors. So maybe cloth diapers isn't for everyone. I want to say that I did all 3 children 100% cloth diapers, but I didn't. I'm not perfect either. We used the cloth diapers, but when we were, traveling and on the go, the disposable ones were still very handy when you have 3 kids and you're working full time and your husband maybe isn't on board fully with what you're trying to do. It's hard to say, oh yeah, we didn't produce any waste. So it's just more about how can we reduce the amount of waste and how can we change our mindset about, not everything should be disposable and just don't worry about it because we just toss it into a landfill.
Talking about mindset, because it's a deep-rooted mindset. Like, where do you begin? Because even just for the last, few weeks, I'm watching and I realize, some things are really way more convenient with disposable.
Yeah.
How do I begin to see that differently, that it is actually possible? For example, every year I organize a retreat in Naples. And for the first time last year, I really felt I can't with the amount of cups.
Yeah.
But there's 120 people, that come for the event. And so I bought 120 of those, those glasses, the mason jar glasses. And so we did these protein shakes and made it really cute with the paper straws. And everybody loved it.
Yeah.
But now I'm thinking I have like 3 boxes of 120 glasses in my closet. And so I can understand how a person would be like, oh, that makes no sense. You really have to like want to do it to make that happen. So how do you suggest? How do we begin to see things differently?
Yeah. It is a tough question. There's no simple answer. Me personally, it can be a challenge, but challenge doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. It can be a fun thing or an exciting thing as well. So you have this problem in front of you. I have an event with 120 people. How can I solve this? And maybe have fun doing it, or maybe save money by doing it. There's all kinds of different ways. If you just look at it differently, you can solve any situation or problem you might be facing when it comes to too much waste. So we do the same thing at the store too. If you think about any kind of commercial or storefront, they produce a lot of waste themselves as well.
That's true.
So we're also trying to rethink, okay, well, all these boxes that we got in, what are we going to do with these, or all these buckets? And sometimes social media is a great tool for us, at least, to just throw it out there and say, hey, does anyone need, free boxes or free 5-gallon buckets that we have left over? And people come and they say, yeah, I totally need it for this project that I'm working on, or whatever it might be. So I just see it as a fun challenge. And if I can't solve it myself, I tap into my community and have them help me solve it.
Yeah. So I think you're right. What you're saying is to begin to look at ways to do it. Not that you're already, perfect in ways of doing it, but it's in your mindset to think, okay, well, we could probably use this in another way.
Yeah.
Well, if someone wanted to, begin to change their home, and wanted to go into zero waste or producing less waste, as you say. I do like how you're stressing that, because I think it does take the anxiety away from
it's less daunting.
Idea.
Yes.
But if someone wanted to think, what are some areas that even from your own experience, where you find not just individually in someone's home, but what ends up in the landfill? What are some of the major producers of waste that we can begin to look at in our home?
Well, first of all, I like the way you asked the question of in your home where to look, because what we usually tell people is pick a room and start there. Because if you try and make your whole home zero waste, if there is such a thing, again, it's overwhelming. So maybe you start with your bathroom, or maybe you start with your kitchen or your laundry room. You pick a room, and one that maybe you're really passionate about, or you feel like it's more manageable to start there. And that's kind of one great way to ease into it. A lot of times, especially for women, the bathroom's a great place to start.
True.
Because if you open up, your cupboard or your vanity there's a lot of plastic in there. And unfortunately, not only is the packaging maybe not the best, but also the ingredients and some of the products that we're using. So just starting in a room is always a great approach. And if even that's too daunting, maybe a section of the room, like maybe, your shower, let's say. So that's a part of your bathroom, and that might be a little bit easier to bite off and start that way. So we always encourage people, one habit change at a time. If you try and do too much at once, it won't stick. So try and do it one thing at a time. And once you've nailed that, then move to the next thing.
Can you take us through that? Like, say, for example, the bathroom, right? Because one thing I've noticed from following you guys and seeing what you're all posting is that I find things that I didn't think about replacing.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, yeah, I could do that. So just take me through an example of an area where you can also find products, that's out there, because now it is more available and readily available, and you're downtown St. Pete. So it's not like I have to go somewhere, outside of the U.S. to get some products or things of that nature. So what would you suggest?
So, oral care is a great place to start. So toothpaste tubes aren't readily recyclable. Yes. There are certain ways you can go about recycling them, a couple of programs here and there, but they're very specific and pretty small still. So get rid of your toothpaste tube and switch to an alternative. That's a great place to start. There's toothpaste powder, there's toothpaste tablets, there's refillable toothpaste gel that you can get in glass jars. So there's a couple of different alternatives there, and it can even be a fun thing. Again, approach it as a fun challenge. They have charcoal ones that are black, and my kids love to brush their teeth, and then they have like the black scary mouth, and then when they're spitting into the sink, it looks all weird. And of course I always make them clean it up afterwards. But it doesn't have to be this dire thing that you're just going to save the planet now and this is a pain, but it can be actually a pleasant experience. And again, sometimes you can even save a little money too. So
exactly.
Yeah.
So in your store, do you have it set up in that way, like different areas, or you're providing for different parts of the house?
We have different stations, we call them, in the store. So like food and beverage is one station, health and beauty is another, cleaning is a big area too. Yes. And then of course we have our bulk section where you can buy things, by the ounce and not have any packaging involved at all. So
you meaning like liquids?
Liquids and powders, so you can come and refill dish soap or shampoo, toothpaste powder. We've got quite a few products in our bulk section.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm just in awe because I can't believe that I haven't made it out there yet, even though because I was so attracted by what you were sharing. But that's one of those things that I was going to say to you. It's this idea of convenience is such a big component of our life, because it made things, because this is not exactly, people say we're kind of going back to the way that we lived before. I didn't have, and I'm not that old. I didn't have plastic bottles actually. Growing, we didn't, you carried your thing, and you're kind of going back to it now. And it's really beautiful, but I do see that aspect of convenience. So it's so important really to change that mindset. And I think, just talking about it and the way that you're putting it out there and making it so accessible, for people is going to be the thing that changes that. I mean, and then also I even think about, like, if you make a comment to somebody, you don't want to be like the person that's like always, what are you doing? Throw that bottle. And I'm watching myself too, because it's kind of this aspect of, you're an example, how do you approach that? Because especially you have a store, you know? So I can imagine that when you're out and about, you're seeing so many ways.
But we don't judge. I mean, that's not my role. You can't motivate someone by making them feel guilty about what they're doing or not doing. So in essence, what I always tell people is we're all on a journey in many different parts of our lives, and this is no different. We're all on this eco journey. We know that there are problems and that we need to be better. And the question isn't how am I going to be perfect and produce no waste? Because I also, like I said, I have my own consumption habits that maybe aren't perfect, but how do we get a little better each day or each month or each year? That's the better way to approach it. So my role isn't to judge you or to tell you what you're doing wrong, but it's to slowly nudge you along on your eco journey and to get you, whether you don't even know where to start or you're already super advanced, but you just want to fine tune some things. I'm just here to support you on that journey. And that's really it. That's my role.
So how do you and Lynn, your partner, how do you envision Sense Market to be? What do you say is your vision for like the next year coming up in terms of the community, in terms of zero waste?
So when we started, we had a handful of products. We started as a pop-up at markets. We had maybe 12 different products, and it was just very specific. It was a few small things that you think of when you think of a zero-waste product like bamboo toothbrushes or stainless steel straws. We've now grown. We have a store that's full of 150 different products, different categories, but it's still very much focused on, imagine a drugstore, if you will, so kind of those types of products. My dream and vision is to really have an end-to-end store for people to come to. Mm-hmm. So food is a big thing that we want to tackle and add to our proposition so that you can get everything you need. Your weekly or monthly grocery shopping trips, you can do them with us. So that's where we want to grow to. And the goal is basically to outgrow our space, and we kind of are outgrowing where we are right now. So
that's wonderful.
Looking at bigger spots and adding more categories and having everything someone needs so they don't have to come to us and then go to, XYZ store to get their grocery done without waste or in bulk. So that's the big challenge now, is how do we do that smartly?
Yeah. And what you all didn't see is that that you brought a beautiful kit, as you were mentioning that you're working on holiday gift set, like kind of like a starter kit.
Yes.
It's making me think if anybody were to come to you now, this especially with the holidays, not only in gifting and being mindful in how we're gifting and how much waste we're producing during that time, but also people are setting up their goals for the next year and what they want to do.
Yes.
So what would you say to someone who is a little scared to start the journey but is going to try?
Yeah.
What words would you leave them with?
Oh gosh. I think the hardest part would already be done because they're there. I think sometimes just showing up is the hardest part. That's what I always think of, like when I'm trying to be healthy and I get to the gym and I feel so intimidated, but I'm like, I did the hardest part. I'm here. I'm at the gym, So it's the same thing. It's like, don't feel intimidated. You're now aware, right? You've reached that level of awareness or consciousness that you want to do something different and live your life a little different or better. And now you're here. So let's talk and let me help you figure out where you want to get started. And then I usually point people to one or two things that are those easier kind of low-hanging fruits to start with on their eco journey. And so it's really just about getting to know the person, even if it's just a 3-minute conversation about what they're looking for and what they'd be more interested in or attuned to with what we have.
Well, that person is me. So I'm coming over.
Okay.
And I'm so curious, to talk to you and see what it is that where I can improve and what I can do. I look forward to that.
I can tell you some of our best sellers, the stainless steel straws. We sell a lot of stainless steel straws, and those are great and those are fine. But I always tell people it's just the tip of the plastic iceberg. There's so much more to living plastic free than having a stainless steel straw. But if that's where people want to start, then that's a great place to start. Just don't stop, keep going. But we do sell a lot of bamboo toothbrushes. Yes. We have a lot of shampoo bars. So when you think of all the plastic bottles of shampoo that people use to get away from that. Things like laundry paste instead of using plastic bottles of laundry detergent. And oddly enough, another one of our huge sellers is period panties. So instead of using the disposable pads, we've been doing really well with the period panties that we carry. So,
and it's really things, not because we don't really care, but we don't really think that that's an area where we could make an adjustment.
Yeah.
And so I'm so glad that you're out doing that and that you're providing this in the community. And I can't wait to have your thoughts as I'm making those changes. And I'll be sharing my journey with everyone on Instagram. Thank you so much for being on the show.
You're welcome.
I hope to have you again soon as we tackle these different areas.
Yes,
then we be more specific.
To discuss. Exactly, yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Find out more about Aniko and Lynn's Zero Waste Lifestyle Store, Sans Market, SANS Market. Find them on Instagram or online, sans.market.